Hello there, my name is Courtney Leonard, and I will be performing a monologue from an interview I had with my grandma Ann. And a main takeaway I had from this interview was realizing how similar me and my grandma are despite having different quirks, and it was a very special conversation that I will remember for a long time.
Hi, my name is Sunny Dimpelis, and I am performing a monologue from my dad. He is not from America, he's actually an immigrant from the Philippines, and this was actually a really insightful conversation, so allowed me to get his cultural viewpoint on things and his viewpoint on silence and kind of what it means to him kind of growing up in a different culture.
Hi, I'm Sam Peters, and I will be performing a monologue taken from an interview with my grandma. As you will see, my grandma has a wealth of memories that she often returns to in the moments of silence that permeate her everyday life. What most affected me about this interview was the amount of insight that she was able to reveal about her past and its connection to the present, as well as the value and comfort of memory.
Hi, I'm Emily Haugen, and I had the wonderful opportunity to interview my dad one night over Zoom. We had a lovely conversation about the state of the world, what silence means to him, what it's like to be an introvert, and also what the noise was like in his house growing up. One really interesting takeaway was getting to see the difference between his childhood and mine, and how the way his household was when he was growing up might have affected the way our household was while I was growing up.
Hi, my name is Kristen Gibson, and I did my monologue based on a conversation I had with my friend Mike. And one thing that I really appreciated with my conversation was just the ability to kind of hear those internal criticisms that we all kind of have about ourselves that we don't really talk about. So it was just really eye opening to be able to see that.
Hi, my name is Annie Lynch. I recently had the opportunity to interview Carolyn Gardner, my roommate, and I think what I valued most about our interview was, although I've lived with Kara for some time, I was able to better understand her and her story, and also how silence plays into her everyday life.
Hi, my name is Claire Greenman, and for this monologue, I interviewed my best friend's mom. I've known her since second grade, so I feel like I know quite a bit about her, but I was really interested to learn how silence has played a role through her life and also learn more about her.
Hi, my name is Emma Pfeiffer, and I had the opportunity of interviewing my grandma Marilyn. This was kind of special to me because this is the first time I've heard some of these stories that she was telling me since my grandpa died. And so it was kind of interesting to see where she's at right now and just see the light in her eyes as she talks about him.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cronk, and my monologue is based off of an interview with my grandma. And I found the experience really interesting to see the similarities and differences between how she perceives silence and how I do, because we are fairly similar people, but there's definitely things that have changed from generation to generation.
Hi, my name is Gina King. I am doing an interview from my friend Oakley. He is in the theater department as well. Me and him, we think a lot alike, but I really enjoyed this to try and find the intricacies that create the difference between the two of us and hearing what he has to say about silence.
Hi, I'm Rowan Jasnock, and I'm performing a monologue based on a conversation I had with my college friend, Cadence Paramore, about silence is the loudest noise. it was very interesting to me because she didn't really tend to stick to a single topic, which most people would say is a bad thing, but it's not. It was very interesting to see where her mind wandered and how she took the conversation in different routes, and it furthered my connection with her as a person, and I got to see a lot more about her.
Hi, I'm Zach Farr. I will be performing a monologue based off of a Zoom interview I had with a good friend. Unfortunately, I've not been able to see this person in 2 years. To me, this monologue demonstrates that the person I made friends with never disappeared. They never changed. The only thing that has is just where they are.
Hi, my name is Chris Alvarez, and I got the opportunity to interview my older sister, Sylvia. I think that something that I ended up taking away from the interview was the amount of concern that my sister has, especially as a DACA recipient living in the U.S. during these tumultuous times, and also how the lockdown in the early weeks of the pandemic heightened these concerns.
Hello, I'm Spencer. I interviewed my mom in a car when we were going to take a trip to Denver, Colorado. This was with my dad as well as my little brother, and what I learned from this was I gained a new perspective and saw a side of my mom that I didn't really get to know, and I have a deeper understanding as well as a great sense of respect for her.
Hello? Is this you? Oh, hello there, pretty lady. So, the topic again is silence. What? Silence is the loudest noise. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Just give me a minute. Silence is the loudest noise. Well, it's a lot of time in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee and emailing my sister Connie. I tell her it's just so quiet and peaceful, When it's the morning and it's just all bright and sunny outside, it's very calming to a person. Yeah. But that also happens when you get older too, and it just becomes a way of life, when you live alone. And living out here in the country like I do, you notice things probably that have been around you for many, many years. But as you get older and sit back and kind of let the world go by you a little bit, it's not so busy like it is when you have children and all, and you take time to enjoy things that you've probably never noticed before. Like the wild turkeys that come in the front yard. Oh, that's a fun thing to watch. Or the time the deer were under the crabapple tree and they were biting down the apples, and they were standing on their back legs like you would see in a Christmas card. Something you probably have never taken time to see when you were younger, but they were probably around you then too. Well, it was this morning. Yes, it was this morning. I always open the bathroom curtain. I thought to myself, you're going to think this is weird, but I thought to myself, wow, yesterday's sunrise was way prettier than this morning's. And then it was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday morning. I thought about taking a picture of it, but I knew my camera wouldn't do justice. But it was the back tree, the deep red one, you know the one. And it was the sun coming up, and it was gorgeous. Well, anyways, you just enjoy it more now because you have the time to absorb it, and take it all in.
Bakit? Don't tatay me. Am I in trouble? What are they gonna do to me? I didn't do anything to them. Oh, so are they going to hear my voice? You're experimenting on me. Oh, Oh, sorry. You're not? This is what I mean by communication. What I meant was, am I the only one you're experimenting on? Oh. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. It's just so hard to communicate. I mean, interviewing, in my perspective, means that I'm in trouble. It means it's no good. Fuck. Okay. I'm sorry. It's just so hard to communicate. I can't even pronounce my S's and my T's that well. I mean, in the Philippines, we don't even have the letters F and Z. Like, English just has too many words with too many meanings. I mean, words like fuck. I mean, it can mean something good, something bad. Okay, well, what was the question again? Silence. Well, Google it. You have a phone, right? Well, it's danger. It's death. Oh. Well, if you're silent, you're dead. Are you talking about people's silence or world silence? Because if you're talking about people's silence, well, then if they're silent, they're dead. And if you're talking about atmospheric silence, well, I don't like it. Because music is just so good. I mean, like the reggae music, the one, the Jamaican kind, or the metal rock music. Music saves the world.
I feel like this is really weird, but I think of, okay, because I'm looking at the snow, and it reminds me of a poem I wrote about how my favorite sound is the sound of snow falling. And, no, we were asked in elementary school what your favorite sound is, and I said the sound of snow falling, and I got told that's not a sound, like, you can't pick that as a sound, and I was like, but I like it because it's so quiet. There's something about the silence that makes me like it. And everyone in my class made fun of me for that. And they said things like, you have to pick something different. And so it just kind of, I don't know, I feel like it ties into if something's different, you're not allowed to do it. And that's a really small example. And I know there are more bigger, more deep, more impactful examples. But to like little 6-year-old me who got told, no, you can't do this because I don't agree with it, I was like, what the fuck do you mean? I agree with it. I think that's a sound. And there are little pieces where, like, what was the topic again? How did we get here? What was the topic? I want to bring it back. Silence is the loudest noise. Okay, so I've noticed people are much more vocal about stuff, and I'm a pretty silent person. I like to just sit and observe and listen, and the more you sit and the less you say, the more people tell you about them, and it's a really good way of getting to know their views, and a lot of the time it can be pretty fucking awful. I'm allowed to swear, right? Like, I've been swearing so fucking much, I hope so. Okay. I'm not saying everyone is a shitty, terrible person, but we all have, like, certain parts of ourselves that aren't the greatest, and noticing that, it blows my mind the kind of conversations I hear where it's like, you don't even know me, my Jewish bisexual self. If you knew me, you would not be saying some of the shit you do.
Well, I grew up in a restaurant. My parents owned a restaurant. We lived above the restaurant. And my nearest brother in age to me, I had 4 siblings, a sister who was 20 years older than me, and 3 brothers. And my nearest brother in age was 10 years older than me. So they were most of the time out of the house before, so it was really just me and my parents, and so the noise was pretty much just from the restaurant downstairs. Living there, it was, I really didn't know any different. I mean, I realized that people had conventional homes and that type of thing. We had a 3-bedroom apartment. And some people would say that I was spoiled because I got to eat anything off the menu that I wanted and order food that way. But we also didn't have the sit down around the kitchen table suppers and that type of thing that we've had with our family. So that also was a dynamic that's important to me. Silence. I don't know if it's necessarily science, but we just never really, we didn't talk about things, real seriously. There were never any sit-down serious conversations. So the silence for that, would it have affected anything? I don't know. But there were things, alcoholism, some physical abuse, those types of things that just weren't talked about.
I think obviously the first thing that comes to mind is my hearing loss, just because I think it's really cool in a sense that I lived 12 years of my life with hearing. Like, I wasn't born with half hearing, or never could imagine what it was like to have full hearing. And I remember the day I first lost my hearing, I woke up with vertigo and the room was spinning and my parents were out of town and my sister was home and she was so scared. That's not normal for somebody to be stumbling around like that. And I don't know why, but my first reaction was to put something in my ear like a Q-tip. And my parents' bedroom was locked. They lock it when they go out of town. And so I found the end of a sucker and and still this day I'm did I damage my ear by doing that? But they could have seen that, So I feel like silence was the loudest noise at that point, just because I heard something in that ear and now I just don't. I feel like usually when a person is fully deaf, you can kind of tell by the way that they talk, but I don't feel like I have any speech impediments. It's like when people go on my right side. It actually just happened 5 minutes ago. Me and my coworker, we were walking to go throw away trash, and in small moments, I don't want to be like, hey, sorry, let me just move over to your other side real quick. It's whatever. So instead, I have to turn my head and be like, yeah, what? So I think that's how it affects my everyday life. How it affects my life overall is I take it as something kind of unique about me. It's something I like, but don't love, I have quirky girl things, but it's hard.
I mean, when I was a kid, when I lived with my parents, I was always silent whenever they would, emotionally abuse us. And, we had to stay silent because we lived under them. But, now that I'm in college, I don't really... I just kind of say what's on my mind, and then they feel bad afterwards, but, that's what they get. I just, now that I can speak freely, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be. This is what I've always wanted to be, and I couldn't because of, mental health and my parents, and also just being a minority in many ways. It just sucks. Being a brown person, being queer, I've always been bullied for my voice, sometimes like you men, even by my close friends, it still happens. I don't know. I just feel like I don't fit any of the desired things that I want, and especially with what society wants, which is masculine, straight, cis, white. I'm cis, but I just feel like I'm short, I'm brown, I can't, I'm decent at school, but that's only because I have to try really hard for it. Whereas other people can just get it right away and don't really have to do all that much. I don't know. There's just a lot about me that I'd want to change because I want to be this glorified version of myself that I know that I'll never get. I don't like being queer. I don't like living, wow, that's dark. I don't like living in the US. Just like being brown, being a Cambodian, and being queer, it just sucks. I have bunions, so those hurt. And I feel like with my voice, it's too high. It just sucks.
You know, to tell you the truth, lockdown was just not fun for me. And I think it's because of the fact that as an extrovert, I'm just so used to being surrounded by constant noise. So being alone made me confront and heightened a lot of the concerns I have about the current state of our country. Silence just made a lot of noise. I cried a lot. Like a lot. I cried a lot because of just how fucked up the current state of our country is right now. And how fucked up it could be if Trump gets another 4 years. Like, it could mean Armageddon. I mean, being in complete silence reminded me of the constant uncertainty that DACA recipients, like myself, have to face in not knowing their future in the US. Also, as a woman, constantly seeing your rights being threatened by old white men, or a Cheeto in a fucking suit. It just makes you feel helpless. The fact that there are people that are willing to stand by this hypocrisy and not even question it. Just not even question how illegitimate Trump is. It baffles me. Well, but then you remember that the same people that are standing by and not even saying anything are the same ones whose rights aren't in jeopardy. And because they don't have to live in fear, their unwillingness to be vocal against issues that are affecting others shows just how privileged they are. Fuck them. Seriously, fuck them. Now that I think about it, I don't think that silence is a bad thing. I think that if anything, just being in lockdown taught me that I need to use my voice. And I want to use my voice. Because being complacent will only make silence grow louder and injustice to be more prevalent in society. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to continue to use my voice.
I feel like in movies, maybe, especially in horror movies or really dramatic movies, sometimes there will just be silence to convey a feeling of dread, almost. Yeah, horror movies come to mind, especially when I think of, it's just that they're usually in horror movies, which is what I usually watch, is just to convey a feeling of terror or a sense of impending doom. Yeah, and it's almost more uncomfortable for there to not be any noise than for there to be like someone screaming or something, you know? For them to just be so terrified that they won't even scream. Yeah, you can just... I suppose, like, you know, some of the books I read, if something scary is happening or something unusual, they'll make a note that there's no birds singing in the forest or something. I think especially with like scary monsters prowling through the woods, or a character is just walking through the woods and they noticed that there weren't any birds singing. The forest is usually full of birds and you're just like, ooh, something's going to happen. Yeah, I'd say if I was walking through a forest, I might not immediately notice that there weren't any birds singing. Yeah, or sometimes if you're just walking alone at night, or even during the day, and there's just no sound. Like, there's usually always background noise, like a road or birds or something, and it's just silent. That's a little bit unsettling, I'd say.
Silence for me evokes peacefulness. I also think of darkness with silence, then I think of peacefulness. Yeah, I get stuck on that. Peacefulness and darkness, for me, they aren't opposing. I think it depends on who you are. Actually, the pastor who married Linda and I had a really interesting perspective on it. Linda and I got married, as you know, in the dead of winter, and the pastor had gotten married to her partner then too. She said kind of, you need silence, like fields are dark and the womb is dark, and so anything that brings life starts in darkness. It actually did a 180 for me on all that. But I like silence, at least right now. Red's a noisy place even with COVID, and the kids are gone, and maybe that's kind of why I like it right now, because it is quiet. And that hasn't happened in a long time, like ever. Because when I was young, Mom moved out of the house into a 1-bedroom, and so I lived, like slept in the same bed with her for like 6 months or a year. And then I moved in with Dennis and had kids, and there was no peace and quiet with that woman. For sure none. I learned during that time actually to be silent. Not in like a meek way, but as a way of like me not talking and me not continuing the conversation is an okay thing to have happen. So my mom, you know my mom, there's a cardinal sin with her. And that is, yeah, if you don't acknowledge Nana, Nana gets upset. So as a kid, when the authority figure or the other person speaks, I always respond. But then there are some people who need to have the last word. So my responding is like, you need to have the last word, but really I'm just acknowledging what you said. But when I was with Elizabeth, it would just snowball into these horrible fights. And I had to learn the hard way to be silent. And it took me a long time, but it's magical. But since I've been with Linda, I'm like, I don't listen to music in the car anymore. I'll actually drive for hours without sound. It's nice.
Okay. Are we recording? Hi. Let's see. I was 18. I had graduated high school and I went to live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I worked at Durkee Famous Foods. I lived at the YWCA, and they had Christmas dances for the Army fellas down at Fort Knox. They would come up to Louisville for the weekend. And so my friend Leola and I went to the dance. I was wearing a beautiful emerald green dress, and my hair was up in a French roll. Just a beautiful darling. To dance with the guys and make them feel happy around Christmas. Well, long story short, a buddy went to get Dennis and brought him back to the table. Then I was introduced to Dennis, and he clicked his heels, took my hand, kissed my hand. Oh, goodness gracious. That's all you need is some handsome dude putting on the charm. Anyways, we were dancing, and Dennis wouldn't let anyone else dance with me. Everyone else at the table was just out of luck. And I was dancing on cloud 1. I had no idea what we were doing. I was just in the moment. And then it was a rule that we could not go out with the fellas. We were just there to dance, and then we could not go out with them. Well, guess who went out with them? So Den and I took off, and we went to a coffee house, and we sat there for hours, just drinking coffee and talking. And then he brought me back to the YWCA. And Dennis, oh, I was so excited. I was getting my first kiss from this handsome man that I had just met and fallen in love with that evening. And he was giving me a kiss that was wonderful. And then he disengaged halfway through the kiss. And he said, "I'll finish that the next time I see you." Holy cats! It's a miracle I didn't just crawl into his pocket and go back to the fort with him. It felt right. It was like, I'm not sure, it was like I was in the moment, loving this man that I had just met, so engrossed in that feeling that I didn't know what was going on around me. It was not loud. It was content. Contentment? Just happy. I've always liked silence. It's never made me afraid or sad. It just is what it is.
Nobody's here having the TV on. Nobody's here talking. Nobody's here coughing. And it's a nice feeling just to be by myself. And nobody's here making any noise. Which, by the way, I never used to like. I'll just say that. I used to like to have noise all the time. And as I've gotten older, I like quiet. I realize that. I like quiet now. Never used to. I didn't grow up that way. We didn't have quiet very often. And so I like quiet now, and I never used to. How's that? Oh, well, this can be silence. Sitting by the north shore of Lake Superior, when the wind is calm and the water is calm, is a very quiet time, and it's a beautiful time, and just nature can be soothing. Oh, that is therapeutic. That is soothes the soul, heals the soul, makes you feel good inside. And just so think about the water and the peacefulness of the quiet, and when it isn't windy. When it's windy, that's a different feeling. That's a roaring feeling, which is a lot of sound. But when it's really, really calm, it's just very calming. And it's beautiful to sit out in nature that way.
You can talk about sound all you want. Ugh, I hate this. I hate this, idea that silence being the loudest noise. It pisses me off a lot because, A, it's not true. Just metaphorical and dumb. Me too checks. I agree. But, I had an original point, and I lost it, and I don't know where it went. What kind of silence? There's literal silence, technical silence. When I was in high school, it was the day after Trump got elected. Yeah, not a good time for me. And I went to school, I don't know. I had very mundane tasks in the morning, I just shower and get ready and go to school. And I found out the night before, and that was a lot of crying. And I went to school the next day expecting it to be, this pencil is still brown, expecting it to be another day at school, as you would expect at school. Sorry, I'm just trying to find this. This one. And I went to my first period, and I had band, and I put my saxophone together and shit, and I went to my locker. And when I went to my locker, like, the main asshole hick was standing at my locker, and after I got my books, I don't know why he waited until after, but after I got my books, he slammed my locker door shut and then asked me if I was scared to come to school now. And I just left, like, the conversation. I didn't even respond. I just walked away. And I really wish I would have, like, screamed at him, because he was, like, the worst part of my fucking high school experience. He's this stupid fucking jackass, and I really wish, because I only started, like, actively speaking for myself when I was in senior year, and that was because I was sick of that fucking town, but I, like, didn't start actively speaking for myself until halfway through senior year. And it was the worst decision I ever made to wait that long, because once I did, people stopped bothering me. And it happened almost immediately, because they're all pussies. But that's, like, the main thing that I wish I could change about a time I just stayed silent.
I do like silence. And I certainly appreciate it because we have a dog next door that sometimes barks at night for a couple hours. I can't even enjoy reading. I think you can get very lonely too when you're older. You start thinking about things in the past and the people that you loved, and well, I remember when we had the Depression, and we had to move a lot, and before we could find a place to stay, we went to the movies, so we had a place to just sit for a while. So I don't know where we ended up that night, but I think Tyrone Power was in that movie. I think they make me more sentimental than happy. Just thinking about all those past days filled with noise. I remember when when Mother had to brush out the grasshoppers when we had a grasshopper plague in North Dakota. A whirring, kind of like just ooh, bump. Well, and then we could hear them fall when they landed. I can just think about that, and I can almost remember the noise. I don't need to, I'm being interviewed. At my age, and it's so silent, you start thinking about all the days before, and sometimes it's sad, but it just kind of gives me a chance to think about what a nice life I've had.
Yeah, I agree. With the silence, being the loudest noise. I tend to use that myself. When you don't agree with something, sometimes people tune you out. And when I want to share something and it doesn't have a positive result, I would just rather hold my tongue. It's less problematic that way. Oh, hey, good morning, Dion. What's that? Oh, okay. Anyways, yeah, it's less problematic that way. I like to keep it on a professional level with my colleagues in the workforce, especially considering that we're all in the same hallway at the school. Most of the time, I'm content with the silence. Other times... What, D? Anyways. Other times, I'm just irritated and that's where it ends. Was I ever taken aback? Yes. I can't recall specifics, but it was noteworthy because I'm a quick thinker and I just needed time to recharge. As a counselor, you have to be okay with waiting to get a response, and you have to be comfortable with listening and being quiet. I'm analytical and introverted, so I'm used to it. It's the profession I asked for. Did you get to what you wanted? Kinda? D, did you have anything to add?